Yeah.
I want to talk about the explosion in numbers. Can you elaborate a little bit on why everyone I know is struggling with some sort of condition, be it mild or severe? Literally, I'm telling you. In fact, a good friend of mine the other day just reached out and I'm back in town. Are you around? Yes. What's going on? How are you? Blah, blah, blah. I think I have an autoimmune condition. I was like, okay, hold on, dude. Serious? Not serious? I think lupus. She's my age. Doc, it's all day long. Somebody's being diagnosed with something and it's getting younger and younger. Am I imagining this, or what are the statistics here?
So there are about 80 is the going number of conventional Western diagnosed autoimmune diseases by definition. Like you said earlier, MS, Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, ankylosing spondylitis. A lot of these go on as psoriatic arthritis. So there's about 80 that have been classically classified in Western medical journals, okay?
Yeah.
But what we're seeing now is an epidemic increase in the numbers of these new cases. And we're seeing them at younger ages, as you alluded to. And what I will tell you is with no family history when that's asked. So in other words, we're seeing these de novo new cases of autoimmune and, by the way, immune conditions, not just against ourselves, autoimmune, but we're seeing like food allergies go up. We're seeing a lot of things, dermatitis, eczema. We're seeing a lot of things that are immune related, but that's epidemic. In fact, in the US, somewhere between 7 and 14% of US citizens have one or more autoimmune diseases, which is, by the way, about 24 to 30 million people.
That is insane.
And it's expected to increase, actually. And it's not because we're getting better at diagnosing, which a lot of doctors...
You knew I was going to ask you that, because that's the going narrative now of, hey, I think the canary is starting to die in the coal mine. No. We're just good at diagnosing it. I'm like, well, cancer is quantifiable. You would have diagnosed that 50 years ago, right? And obesity, but this one is a bit more difficult for obvious reasons, because I do remember when a family member got fibromyalgia and it was like, we don't know. We think it's psychosomatic, which I want to get to in a minute. But you're saying that's not the issue. We are, in fact, experiencing this now at an exponential pace, younger and younger. It's true.
Yeah. And listen, let me ask you, how long does a typical patient spend with their doctor on a visit, on a follow-up?
Right,
15 minutes. What's a new patient visit? And I know this because I've been in the system a very long time, 30 minutes.
Oh my God.
In that time, you have just enough time to say, what are your drugs? Are you taking them? Any side effects, any change in other medications from other, It's very short. It's not allowing, and I don't blame doctors, I blame the system, to be clear, but it's not enough time, in my opinion, to get the real questions in. Are you sleeping? Are you eating clean? What kind of foods do you eat? What kind of diet do you follow? Do you think about things like air quality? Do you, where do you work? Do you get exposed to things in your job? These are the types of things, even when you're talking about autoimmune disease evaluation, we do have blood work, great blood work to evaluate, but even that is in the hands of the interpreter, right?
Oh, for sure.
So everything is about the interpretive message. We are doing more of the blood tests that I think encompass autoimmune disease diagnosis. I will say that it's becoming much more comfortable for people to order the tests. My concern is, once you have that blood work, do you always have to reflexively jump to pharmaceutical options? Or can you use integrative medicine, diet, nutrition, chemical reduction, gut microbiome improvement, and add nutrition that we know offsets some of the harm from these chemicals? Can we do those things first before we move into pharmaceutical options, which is, unfortunately, one of the only things we're taught in med school even now? And that's
funny you say that, because a friend of mine who was diagnosed with a very rare skin autoimmune condition called anatoderma, where the body attacks the collagen in the skin, and you end up looking like you have patches on your body that's 80 years old when you're 30 years old, and it's in these crazy patches. And at first, when I had seen it, I was like, gosh, I think you might have a little fungal infection, wash with Selsun blue. Not one doctor could figure out what it was. Long story short, and she was tired all the time, and I was like, dude, I think you need to go to a dermatologist or whatever. Anyway, they finally figured out what it was, but it took years for them to figure it out. And I wonder, how many people do you think, and she was tired all the time. It's like, well, I'm just tired. I have kids. I'm just tired. I'm just run down. I'm just working a lot. And now it's like, actually, you have this immune condition. And the first thing I wanted to do was smash her with 2 different antibiotics. And I was like, wait. Don't hold on. And then I reached out to a gastroenterologist who I've had on the show numerous times, named Dr. Sabine Hazen. And she was like, wait a minute. And her plan was to put more good microbes into the body. And as you mentioned, see if she could balance out the gut instead of kill everything in there. But that was the go-to, doc. It was like, let's throw the kitchen sink at this thing from a pharmaceutical perspective. And only doctors who are becoming more and more like yourself, trying to find the root cause, trying to work on stopping the problem at its root, preventing it, and removing whatever is instigating the issue. Most do what you're saying. And my friend was undiagnosed for a long time. How many people do you think have a condition that are in fact not diagnosed? And subsequently, do you recommend they then get blood work? Would that be the first step? Go to an internist or go to your rheumatologist? Because I just want to get to, I know you have the 4 A's and everything, but for somebody listening going, I think that's me, what should they do to figure this out?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's complex, and full disclosure, I don't want anyone not to do anything that's going to harm themselves against their current doctor's recommendation. Because again, people do things on impulse, and I think it's also scary. So you really want to be working with a practitioner that you like, you trust, and you feel good about. And hopefully people will find that. But you want people to think, in my opinion, look, pharmaceutical drugs, I use them all the time. I'm a rheumatologist. If people don't take some of my drugs, they die. They have problems.
Jeez.
I'm a realist, and I love the fact that there are many medications that have been developed over the 22, 25 years since I graduated that are available for people. And we don't see some of these horrible things that we used to see. Now, that being said, we need to think about, number one, how do we teach prevention in these healthcare, in these education systems? Well, they're not really set up that way, because the subsidiary, the people who pay for these training programs are often pharmaceutically based, and they have an agenda in many ways. And I say this not as a conspiracy theorist, but because I've offered 45 hours of free curriculum to 3 med schools and they didn't want it. And that's because we need to think about prevention before we get to maybe pharmaceutical as a tool. And when you have more tools in your toolbox, you have more to work with.
Of course.
Now, you have to triage. You don't want people who are coming in with really severe autoimmune or organ-related issues to just sit on it and work on their diet or work on this for a while. But your point is well taken. The tendency is to throw things pharmacologically at things without thinking, well, where is this coming from to begin with?
Right.
We know that there are some very reasonable places to start, meaning what we eat and what we drink, where does it go? It dumps into the gut, right? And it's 26 feet of bowel. It's a gut microbiome we've been with for millions of years, of bacteria, mold, yeast. We've lived with these suckers for a long, long time. And what we don't want to do is knock them off and create an imbalance. We don't want chlorinated drinking water. That's why one of the recommendations is to think about filtration of your
we're getting
water.
Into the water thing.
We'll
Trust
get
me.
into,
I
or
have
food
many
chemicals.
questions about the water.
Yeah, I mean, so thinking about gut work, thinking about how to remove some of the things that actually trigger the immune system. And by the way, your comment about fatigue is so interesting, because when people do have an autoimmune disease, they feel tired independently of things like sleep apnea or restless legs, assuming all that's worked out. They feel tired because their immune system is doing what it shouldn't be doing all day long. It's on. We want to quiet the immune system so we can only need to use it when we need to use it. And that's a really important concept in the immune system. Let's keep it quiet. Let's keep it balanced before we even need it. Say we come across a cold or a flu or what have you.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And make sure to let me know what guests you want to see on in the future.